One of the great endeavors of archaeology is figuring out which events described in the Bible actually happened.
Deep in the heart of Kentucky, a man is building an ark. He doesn't think he's the new Noah, but he does think the Bible story may in fact be factual, and he wants to open a theme park to make the case.
High on the slopes of Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey, shrouded in mist and legend, lies a site that has long captured the imagination of explorers, theologians, and scientists alike. For centuries, whispers of a colossal wooden structure buried beneath ice and rock have persisted, rumors that this could be the final resting place of Noah's Ark. When a team of researchers finally uncovered sections of a large symmetrical formation deep within a glacial cavity, the discovery reignited one of the oldest mysteries of human history. What they found inside the structure, hidden for millennia, sent shockwaves through both the scientific and religious worlds. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. The discovery began with a radar scan, initiated by a joint team of geologists and archaeologists using advanced ground-penetrating technology to survey a peculiar formation identified decades earlier. For years, the shape had been dismissed as a natural rock formation molded by erosion. But as the instruments began to penetrate deeper layers, clear geometric outlines emerged. Beams, chambers, and corridors perfectly aligned along a massive keel-like structure. When the excavation began, a faint odor of ancient pitch filled the air, confirming the use of waterproofing resins similar to descriptions found in ancient texts. The scientists descended into a hollow section, and what they found appeared to be remnants of a vast wooden framework, carbon dated to an age that eerily aligned with the timeline associated with the biblical flood narrative. Inside, the temperature dropped sharply. As their lights cut through the gloom, beams of massive timber, petrified yet intact, stretched across what seemed to be vast compartments. These weren't random cavities carved by nature. Each was precisely partitioned, as if designed to hold cargo or living creatures. The structure's symmetry stunned even the most skeptical researchers. One scientist recorded in his notes that the scale and craftsmanship suggested a level of engineering unimaginable for a civilization over 5,000 years old. The wood bore traces of bitumen, a black tar-like substance used in ancient waterproofing, and the markings etched along some planks were unlike any known writing system, blending pictographic and geometric elements. As they continued exploring, the team uncovered objects that defied immediate classification. Embedded in the sediment were small containers fashioned from hardened clay, and a series of carved stone seals depicting animals in pairs. Each figure was meticulously detailed: elephants, birds, cattle, even creatures resembling species that no longer exist today. The implications were staggering. If the carvings were authentic, they could represent an ancient catalog, a symbolic record of the life that the vessel carried. More astonishing was the discovery of biological residue preserved in crystalline mineral formations on the walls. DNA sequencing later revealed traces of multiple animal species, some of which have been extinct for thousands of years. One of the most confounding discoveries came when the team unearthed an enclosed chamber sealed behind a slab of hardened pitch. When the barrier was breached, the stale air within carried a faint organic scent, a mixture of resin, earth, and something indescribably ancient. Inside lay a wooden platform lined with what appeared to be woven mats of reeds and animal fibers. Embedded among them were small metallic fragments that glinted under the light. Upon closer analysis, these fragments turned out to contain traces of alloys that should not have existed during the period in question. The combination of copper and tin indicated a primitive form of bronze, suggesting metallurgical knowledge long before the known Bronze Age. Further inside, the scientists discovered a cylindrical vessel resembling a crude lamp, still coated with a black residue that upon testing was found to be a mixture of animal fat and a hydrocarbon compound. The evidence suggested the builders had understood chemical preservation and fuel sources far beyond what ancient human societies were believed to possess. Each find blurred the boundary between mythology and historical reality, between the symbolic and the physical. As word of the findings spread, the research site became a guarded zone, patrolled and protected, while analysis continued under strict secrecy. The walls of the structure were the most haunting feature. Covered in faint carvings, They seem to tell a story not through words, but through images and patterns. Some panels depicted a world engulfed by water, waves rising higher than mountains, and human figures holding animals aloft. Others showed celestial formations, stars and constellations, suggesting that the builders possessed astronomical knowledge. One panel in particular depicted a radiant circle in the sky, surrounded by streams of descending light that struck the Earth. Scientists speculated that this could represent a meteorological event, perhaps a comet or celestial impact that triggered environmental upheaval. Geologists studying the surrounding rock formations discovered a layer of sediment distinct from any other in the region. It contained marine fossils, shells, and coral fragments, thousands of meters above sea level. This lent credence to the possibility that the site had once been submerged, consistent with a cataclysmic flood. Microscopic analysis of these layers revealed a rapid deposition event rather than slow geological buildup. Something extraordinary had indeed happened in the ancient past, and the structure's presence within this layer suggested it was contemporaneous with the event. As the scientists delved deeper, they encountered chambers that seemed almost ritualistic. One central room contained an elevated stone altar, upon which were arranged the remains of burnt organic material, perhaps a form of offering. Around the chamber's perimeter, wooden supports formed an intricate lattice, each beam carved with symbols resembling waves and birds. The craftsmanship displayed a level of artistry that spoke of reverence and fear, as if the builders were chronicling a divine ordeal. The air inside the chamber was heavy, as though the place itself retained the echo of ancient prayers. Among the most startling artifacts found was a crystalline tablet, its surface smooth but inscribed with microscopic grooves visible only under magnification. The grooves, when analyzed through digital imaging, revealed an encoded pattern not unlike modern binary sequences. This baffled the team. Some speculated that the markings were purely decorative, but others suggested a primitive attempt at recording data or information. The idea that a civilization thousands of years ago could have understood symbolic encoding challenged the entire narrative of human technological evolution. What terrified the scientists wasn't merely the artifact itself, but what it implied: that the flood survivors may have preserved knowledge far beyond their supposed capabilities. The excavation also revealed large quantities of organic residue trapped in mineral deposits. When sampled, these contained compounds consistent with preserved proteins, suggesting that animal life once occupied the chambers. The presence of distinct species markers in separate compartments indicated that the structure was intentionally divided by type, consistent with the account of animals being brought in pairs. Geneticists analyzing the samples reported the discovery of DNA sequences not matching any known modern species. Some fragments appeared to be hybrids or mutations, as if the Ark had carried remnants of species that no longer existed anywhere on Earth. This revelation added a new layer of mystery, raising questions about the diversity of life before the flood and the origins of extinction. Outside the Ark structure, geological analysis uncovered petrified wood fragments scattered across a wide area, some embedded in volcanic rock. Radiometric dating placed these fragments at over 4,800 years old, an age that coincides eerily with various flood myths from cultures across the globe. From Mesopotamia to India to the Americas, ancient civilizations told stories of a deluge that reset the world. For centuries, scholars dismissed these accounts as symbolic. Now, with physical evidence emerging from the mountains of Turkey, those same stories seem to share a common historical core. The possibility that multiple civilizations had inherited memory of the same event became harder to ignore. Inside one of the outer compartments, researchers discovered what looked like a rudimentary navigational tool. It consisted of a polished stone disc mounted within a bronze-like frame, with grooves suggesting rotational movement. When cleaned and reconstructed, the device was found to align with celestial north, using magnetic properties embedded in the stone. This indicated that whoever constructed the vessel understood both magnetism and orientation, knowledge thought to have emerged thousands of years later. The discovery forced historians to reconsider the timeline of technological development, suggesting that ancient humanity possessed bursts of advanced understanding that were later lost to catastrophe. Another section of the Ark revealed the remains of what appeared to be storage chambers for seeds and grains. Clay containers, still sealed by ancient resin, were found to contain perfectly preserved seeds. When tested, some of these seeds exhibited viable DNA, prompting controlled germination experiments. The resulting plants showed unusual resistance to drought and disease, characteristics that modern botanists struggle to engineer. This hinted that the builders of the Ark had not only gathered life to preserve it, but had also selected specific genetic traits, possibly understanding rudimentary forms of biopreservation. The scientific community found itself confronted by evidence of ancient genetic foresight. The deeper the scientists ventured, the more the structure seemed to resist explanation. The dimensions of the Ark matched astonishingly well with measurements described in ancient sources. Hundreds of cubits long, proportioned for stability rather than speed, consistent with what modern shipbuilders would recognize as optimal for flotation in turbulent waters. The structure's alignment with the slope of the mountain also appeared deliberate, as though it had been guided to rest in a natural cradle formed by the terrain. Seismic studies revealed that beneath the Ark was a hollow cavity stretching further down into the mountain, possibly the result of the vessel settling and embedding itself during the flood's retreat. Yet, what unsettled many of the scientists was not just the physical evidence, but the implications for human history. If this structure truly was the Ark, it meant that a catastrophic flood had indeed wiped out much of early civilization, erasing entire cultures, technologies, and records. Humanity's story would have begun again from a handful of survivors. This notion resonated with genetic studies suggesting a population bottleneck in ancient human DNA, as though humanity had once dwindled to a few thousand individuals. The convergence of myth, geology, and genetics painted a chillingly coherent picture. One of the most emotionally charged discoveries came from a small chamber near the stern of the structure. Inside, they found a collection of wooden tablets inscribed with lines that seemed almost poetic, though the language was unrecognizable. Linguists attempting to decode them noticed recurring symbols associated with water, stars, and rebirth. The rhythm of the inscriptions suggested they might be hymns or prayers written during the ordeal. The very existence of these tablets indicated literacy and an organized form of record-keeping. They were not the crude scrawls of survivors, but deliberate compositions reflecting deep spirituality and scientific observation intertwined. Radiocarbon tests performed on the materials found within the Ark yielded ages that clustered between 4,800 and 5,200 years old. This time frame coincided with massive climate shifts and abrupt sea level changes documented in ice cores and ocean sediments around the world. Satellite imaging of ancient riverbeds and submerged cities from the Persian Gulf to the Black Sea hinted that a flood of unprecedented magnitude had indeed reshaped the landscape. The realization that this global deluge might have been a real event, and that survivors had recorded and preserved their experience, left many researchers speechless. The lines between archaeology and theology had never blurred so completely. When scientists examined the Ark's pitch-based coating under electron microscopy, they discovered microcrystalline patterns consistent with engineered polymers. Though organic in origin, these structures displayed characteristics similar to synthetic resins used in modern composites. The material's ability to repel water after thousands of years indicated a mastery of chemistry well beyond what was thought possible in antiquity. How such knowledge could have existed in a pre-industrial age became one of the most haunting questions to arise from the excavation. The researchers began to wonder whether this knowledge had been inherited from an earlier civilization, one destroyed by the flood itself. Throughout the excavation, strange magnetic anomalies were recorded near the site. Instruments malfunctioned, compasses spun erratically, and even communication devices experienced interference. Some theorized that the mountain's mineral composition was to blame, but others speculated that the Ark contained materials capable of generating an electromagnetic field. Samples taken from certain metallic fragments showed traces of magnetite aligned in consistent polarity, suggesting intentional arrangement. The possibility that the structure was designed to harness or withstand geomagnetic forces added yet another layer of intrigue, suggesting the builders had observed natural phenomena and adapted to them with remarkable ingenuity. As the team documented their findings, they realized that the structure was more than a mere vessel. It was a monument of survival, constructed with knowledge that bridged practicality and sacred symbolism. Every beam and chamber seemed to carry dual meaning, a fusion of engineering and faith. The Ark was both machine and temple, embodying humanity's struggle to endure the wrath of nature and preserve the essence of life. It stood as a testament not only to ancient craftsmanship but to the indomitable spirit that drove early humanity to safeguard creation itself. The deeper implications of the discovery rippled through scientific circles. If the Ark was genuine, it demanded a reassessment of the linear model of human progress. Civilizations may have risen and fallen multiple times, leaving only fragments of their knowledge behind. The flood could have been not merely a natural disaster, but a turning point in human evolution, erasing an advanced epoch and forcing survivors to rebuild from memory. The symbols found within the Ark hinted at cosmological understanding, alignments with solstices, tidal patterns, and lunar cycles that suggested the builders saw themselves as part of a vast cosmic order. As word of the discovery spread, religious scholars, historians, and scientists converged on Mount Ararat. Each discipline brought its own interpretations, but all agreed that the find was unparalleled. The notion that a tangible artifact could connect myth with measurable evidence shook the foundations of both faith and reason. Yet despite the excitement, there was an undercurrent of unease among the research team. Some reported unsettling sensations while working inside the Ark, echoes, inexplicable vibrations, and moments where instruments registered temperature drops without environmental cause. Whether these were psychological effects or something more, they deepened the mystery surrounding the structure. Archaeobotanists analyzing the residues within the Ark's storage rooms found traces of herbs and resins known for antiseptic and preservative properties. This suggested that the builders had intentionally selected materials to prevent decay and disease during the voyage. The presence of such knowledge implied not random chance, but deliberate planning rooted in empirical observation. The same resins were later identified in ancient Egyptian embalming practices and Mesopotamian healing rituals, hinting at a shared ancient scientific tradition that may have descended from flood survivors. In the uppermost section of the structure, explorers uncovered a series of narrow vents, carefully positioned to allow air circulation without compromising structural integrity. This ingenious design ensured ventilation even when the vessel was sealed. The vents also seemed to align with specific constellations when viewed from outside, perhaps serving both practical and symbolic purposes. Engineers who reconstructed the design through 3D modeling concluded that the Ark's architecture demonstrated an understanding of aerodynamics and hydrodynamics rarely seen in early history. The balance between functionality and spiritual geometry pointed to a civilization that perceived science and religion as inseparable expressions of truth. The discovery of the Ark forced scientists to reconsider the origins of civilization. If humanity once possessed such knowledge and technology, only to lose it in a global catastrophe, then the rise of Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley might have been a reawakening rather than a beginning. The Ark, preserved in ice and stone, could be the missing bridge between antediluvian and post-diluvian history, a monument from an age erased by floodwaters but preserved by divine or natural intervention. The patterns carved into its walls might be the remnants of a universal language once spoken across early humanity, a language lost when the world fragmented into isolated survivors. Inside one of the final chambers explored, researchers found the remnants of what might have been a control or observation area. Wooden supports framed a panoramic opening now sealed by rock, offering a view toward the plains below. The positioning suggested that this space had been used to observe external conditions during the flood. Scattered along the floor were shards of polished quartz, possibly used for light reflection or signaling. When struck by light, these crystals emitted faint luminescence, a property linked to piezoelectric energy. The possibility that the builders harnessed natural energy sources like magnetism or crystal resonance seemed almost impossible. Yet the evidence could not be ignored. Throughout their work, the scientists were constantly aware that they stood within something that transcended time. The Ark was not merely an artifact, but a message, one carved in wood, sealed in pitch, and buried beneath centuries of snow. Its very existence challenged the boundaries between myth and reality, faith and science, creation and survival. Each chamber, each artifact seemed to whisper that the human story was older, more complex, and more cyclical than anyone had imagined. The flood had not just erased a civilization, it had concealed a warning. As the excavation neared its limits, the researchers paused, staring into the vast wooden corridors that had lain silent for thousands of years. The beams creaked faintly under the mountain's weight, like echoes of a forgotten voice. The world outside was eager for answers, but the scientists knew they were standing at the threshold of something too immense to fully comprehend. Every measurement, every specimen, every carving seemed to point to an intelligence that had endured catastrophe, recording its knowledge in the only way it knew, through the craftsmanship of survival. The implications of what they found inside Noah's Ark extended far beyond theology or archaeology. It forced humanity to confront the fragility of civilization and the enduring power of memory. Whether viewed as divine intervention or ancient engineering genius, the Ark symbolized a moment when humanity faced extinction and chose preservation. It was the embodiment of resilience, a vessel not just of life but of knowledge, of continuity amid chaos. The secrets it held were fragments of a world lost to water, yet preserved to remind future generations that even in the face of destruction, hope can be built, sealed, and carried forward. High on Mount Ararat, the wooden bones of that ancient vessel still rest beneath layers of ice, guarding their story against the passage of time. What scientists found inside terrified not because it defied belief, but because it revealed how much humanity has forgotten, and how much still lies buried beneath the weight of history. The Ark stands as both relic and revelation, a testament to survival, a whisper from a world reborn, and a reminder that the past may hold truths far stranger than myth. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on scientists' shocking discovery inside Noah's Ark? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.